Hello, hello. Welcome back to Love Medicine TV. I am your host, Sacred Walker, founding president and CEO of Kuumba Health LLC, and as well of this powerful Love Medicine Institute. I'm here with two amazing pioneers in their own right. I'm here with Skye Adrian, lead organizer of Fierce New York City. Welcome. And welcome. And I'm here with Natalie Gross, Dean of Diversity and Inclusion at Sarah Lawrence College. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Yes, of course, of course. So before we dive into our hot topic of this week, which is how to foster inclusive environments amidst the national crisis, I want to take a moment to pull in Love Medicine tradition a love card for everyone watching, those locally from Newark to Nigeria, to be able to really invite into our day a Love Medicine moment. And so, the love card for today is love speaks to me all through the day. When you don't know what to do, focus on love. Love is an infinite intelligence that will always help you if you let it. Love speaks to me all through the day. When you don't know what to do, focus on love. Love is an infinite intelligence that will always help you if you let it. All right. So, in the spirit of love helping you if you let it, this is our amazing think tank. It's an opportunity to build bridges and really address community ailments that are happening across the country. And so now I want to pass the mic onto our host, Skye Adrian, lead organizer of Fierce New York City, that's going to take us from here. Thank you so much for joining.
You're most welcome, and thank you so much for giving me the floor. But with no further ado, I think we're going to get right into our part two. And I think our first question is going to be, based on what we were previously discussing in part one, is that we're finding creative health and leadership solutions to the world's ailments. Disagreeing is okay and encouraged. And I think I personally want to say that, like my grandparents would normally say to me, it's okay to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what makes us unique. That's what makes us different. And that's what makes us, you know, like be able to like grow up and understand that, you know, we're going to have differences as long as we can see through those differences and work collectively together. But I mean, that's just my opinion. I think hearing from Natalie first and then Sacred, I definitely want like your understanding of what that is. Like, what does that mean to you? What does that look like, especially personally and as an organizational standing?
Thank you. I think, let's see. First of all, I'll start with the like being okay to disagree, right? So a lot of times when we lead discussions on campus, we list out ground rules, right? And so I'm acting like they're right behind me. They're not. But we list out ground rules. And so we always say like, it's okay to make mistakes, but it's not okay to continue making those mistakes. And like, we also say like, everybody's having these different perspectives, right? And respecting perspective, even if it's not your own, right? And finding a way to seek to understand first before you seek to be understood. So I think disagreement is natural, right? I think we kind of touched on that before about like, our perspectives as three Black folks, but seeing the world differently through the way that we interpret our own Blackness, right? And so we might be in the same situation, but look at it differently. And so I think finding a way to like have those respectful disagreements is important, right? Even if they are impassioned, even if they are loud, I think that's okay. But I think finding a way to like listen and hear where the other person's coming from and say like, I see what you're seeing, but the way I interpret it is totally different because of my own experience, right? And I think being able to like create those ground rules or set those expectations that we might not come to the same conclusion or one agreement, but like we're gonna just make space to listen and like hopefully take those perspectives away from whatever conversation, whatever situation it is with us.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I love the way that you were saying, you know, sometimes looking at the way that we interpret it, right? And how that sometimes gets involved into how people disagree. And also you were talking about safe spaces and being clear. What I loved is the fact that we do the same thing, having the group agreements up on the wall so we're all clear and on the same page about, fostering disagreement, but doing it in such a way that will leave people feeling heard, valued, and respected. And I think that that's really crucial. I think something too, is thinking too this weekend or this Friday, I did a training with mental health providers, healthcare providers from across the country who were looking at what happens, how do you respond when you get triggered, right? And I think that that speaks to the disagreement, because sometimes, you might be in a space where, especially if you have a challenging history, you might hear something that kicks something up, and maybe it's not the person's intention, but it's about the impact. And so something that, came up was that everyone in the room recognized that there were times where they got triggered, where they would get smaller, or they would kind of invite an invisibility. And so I think, to your point about the ground rules being up, I think another part of that is to create space that if you are getting triggered, or if you do have a history, that you have some way that your community has agreed to express that, so it doesn't go into the guilt. It can really create space for love, for this invitation of, you know what, that brought this up for me. I do need to, move through this, and just know that that's how it impacted me. So I can feel safe to be able to share and disagree. So that I think, to add on to that, would be my offer, would be creating space that it's safe to disagree.
And then, like, I was looking at another concept to that, because like when you think about safe space, how realistic is a safe space? Because there's nowhere that's safe, regardless of whether it's deemed a safe space or not. So then I've been working around this concept and kind of like seeing how I can do this with Fierce, is creating a brave space. And it's a different component from safe space, because we're not saying that we don't want you to feel safe, of course, but in the event that it comes out of that safety, that you're brave enough to handle what that may or may not look like when it happens. And that is, okay, somebody may say something that's triggering to you, but what are your coping mechanisms, or what are your healing stuff that you're doing to be able to like handle that in the situation, or at least after what the situation's happened. So I'm currently working out what that brave space is going to look like, but it can very much start from having those community agreements posted up. So it sets the tone of the expected relationships you're meant to have within the space, regardless of whether there's a disagreement or not.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then also, I think this ties right into about about your solution oriented style, and how that can create, solutions for like disagreements within the space. So I think that's like, as in regards to like solution orientation, like that is one solution to how you can fix like a disagreement that happens in a space, or a potential disagreement. Once that tone or that culture is already set, then we wouldn't have that issue. But let me get back into this, because I think
while you're getting back into that, I just wanted to name how I know you both, because I realized that, that I was remiss to share that I know you both from this. Yeah, and I want to bring that in, because I realize that also is an interesting loop around what we were just talking about safe space. And others who feel like they have their own way of safe space, please respond underneath so this can be as interactive as possible. I'm fortunate to know the both of you, having worked with the both of you in different capacities, and having seen the both of you, and collaboratively work with the both of you around fostering safe space. And so that's been a true gift, being able to watch the efforts of diversity and inclusion through your race summit, Natalie, and being able to see the ways that you're building your membership, and really, intentionally inviting in safe space into Fierce, and supporting that around professional development and wellness and leadership. And so and even this being a safe space that we can have a conversation and put things out there coming from different angles, but finding a bridge. So I want to name that I feel like I actually know the both of you through having worked collaboratively in different ways, and known you now for some, a little bit of time, as a result of the fostering of safe space, specifically in relationship to students and to those who are rising young adults. So I feel like that's also a gift, which is why I was so glad to kind of invite you both to join this program. So I want to name that I'm very humbled to be a part of this conversation with the two of you.
Right. And then I just want you to remind me of the topic and why we're doing this. Because I think we don't want to, for the persons who may not have been a part of part one, but a part of part two will have like a better understanding just as members who participated in part one.
And to clarify, so this broadcast is going to be a single broadcast for those who are watching for the first time. So this is going to be the complete one. And so the folks who are coming in, just remember that the topic for this week is how to foster inclusive environments, inclusive school environments amidst the national crisis, right? Amidst many people feeling like maybe walking down the street, going to school, showing up, there are many things on their minds that may not feel like they can be present or may not feel like they can show up in a way that leaves them feeling safe, just based on the kind of the different changing of climate. And so the topic is how to foster inclusive school environments amidst the national crisis. And so thanks for those who are joining us, who are educators, providers, students themselves, who watch this now and later, continue to chime into the conversation. But thanks, Skye, for bringing us back to really focusing on the topic at hand.
Right, great. And then, of course, I'm very excited to, again, hear what are the issues or how it is that you're tackling this particular issue within your own organizations. I know for Fierce, it's just simply like even our membership forms has preferred names, has pronouns, personal gender preferred pronouns. So there's different ways in which we incorporate inclusivity into the space. We have a trans memorial wall. So for all trans individuals who have passed on before us, we have a wall with a memorial kind of talking about their stories, their families, and what they were doing before they passed away. So we have many different things like that within the space that kind of like starts to help tackle that issue. And then also our workshops and our programs are not specific to any particular letter within the LGBT spectrum, as long as we have like members and facilitators who are reflective of that community and that are facilitating culturally appropriate workshops that cater to the needs of our members. And that's basically how we go about creating such an inclusive space, among many other things that I could speak about. But I am going to give you two also an opportunity, and starting with Sacred this time, how do you create that inclusivity within your programs and your services that you do?
Yeah, and that was excellent. And I want to just jump on that and then respond as well. For those who are new to certain terms, just knowing that gender pronoun is the pronoun by which you live. So it may not always match the one that is on your birth certificate. And so when someone says gender pronoun, it's really, to Skye's point about creating a space where you are respected as the pronoun that you move in. And in honor of National Coming Out Day, which is, the day that this is being released, it's really important for that to kind of be highlighted. And as far as our organization, I think back to when I was, for those who know me well, I love my mom. And when I was younger, my mom gave me this book called Ghost Girl. And it was about a young woman who didn't have a voice. Everyone thought she was severely developmentally delayed. She was constantly let back. She was always left in the corner. People didn't really respond to her. And it was written during a time where people didn't have as many nuances around socio-emotional learning and mindfulness as they do today. And years later, she was in a classroom with a teacher who, took more interest in her, took time, pulled her aside, and even in her silence, began to interact with her. And it comes to find out that she was experiencing harm at home. And she spent most of her day at school, right? So that was the only other outlet for her to express. And by the end of the book, she was graduating from college. She was starting her own organization. And so she was able to find her voice. She was speaking. She went from being very silent and internal to being verbal. And that story has always stuck with me, personally, because of my history that I had, but also because I find that so many people who spend most of their days at work or at school, that's their outlet, right? That's often their outlet to find space for their voice, to feel connection. And if you have individuals like your counselor, your dean of diversity and inclusion, your, lead organizer, your telehealth counselor, working collaboratively, it'll make such a difference to feeling like, the part of you that doesn't have a voice is expressed. And over the years, something that I saw was so many ghost girls. I saw so many ghost girls, ghost young men, ghost gender neutral folks who were in school and saw the injustices of the world and wanted to succeed, but then they wanted to leave the classroom and go fight it because they didn't feel like they had a voice. So there was all this internal conflict. So something that I feel very proud of that we do is to go in to work usually from 3 hours to, 18 weeks, and really look at, okay, if you do feel like you are, someone that has had something that makes you feel uncomfortable, or you're feeling unjust, or something that's bothering you in the world, that you have space to use healing arts and to use play and to use leadership skills to build on that. And I feel very clear that any human being who've been through ghost girl kind of experiences can still rise in their leadership. And so that for me feels important, to collaborate with others like yourself to really create spaces that, no one ever feels like a ghost girl. And so my mom is always like, yay, and I read that book so many times. So I highly recommend that book to anyone, but it really, for me, has always been a soft spot in my heart.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sacred. And I know, Natalie, you're one of the best persons for this question, because not only are you setting a trend by being in the position that you are as a director of diversity in your institution, but you're setting that tone for a lot of other institutions that may not be doing the same thing. So please share with me, how has that been? How have people been receptive to your position, and how have you been making an impact so far?
Thank you. So one, I want to start with thanking Sacred for also having me here and appreciating this safer space, right? To have this dialogue. So thinking about two things that you both mentioned earlier. So we have 3 what we call identity spaces, but we also call them safe spaces or safer spaces on campus. And I like this whole idea for spaces for voices, right? Where they can be heard and feel comfortable saying what they need to say, right, without judgment. And so we have a LGBTQI space, which is our newest space on campus. So it's in its 3rd year, just started its 3rd year. We have Common Ground, which is our student of color identity meeting space. And we have our spiritual space, which sounds like what it is. So it's prayer space, quiet reflection space, meditation, yoga, singing space, you name it, right? So all of these spaces provide similar things. Community, so spaces for students, faculty, staff, whomever, to come outside the greater Yonkers, Bronxville community, to come in, to be in conversation. Some of them, two of the spaces have TV, so they do TV watching nights, and watch the shows that reflect the folks that are in the spaces, right? So in Common Ground, they do the whole TGIT night and watch all the Shonda Rhimes shows, because there are a lot of people of color, right, in these shows. They have open mic nights. They have coming out day events that are actually coming up within the next couple of weeks. They have family dinners. They have family dinners. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. They have family dinners. They have just people come and study. They come hang out, and really thinking about, for us, these are the places that a lot of students, a lot of people ask, right? We had a prospective student say yesterday, and people say, well, if you have these safe or safer spaces, does that mean that the community is unsafe? Well, the answer really is, this is a space where students can share those voices and those experiences, and know that even if people don't fully agree, they can be in dialogue, right? And they can they leave those spaces feeling heard and feeling understood in a different way, because people are coming ready to be in those dialogues with them about race, about sexuality, about spirituality, or to be in community with them, even if the perspective is different, right? And I think for me, having these spaces on campus is important for a lot of students who don't have these spaces at home, right, wherever they're coming from, to know that they have a space. I can find people who want to talk about this. I can find people who want to pray. I can find people who want to share their coming out story, or I can actually share my coming out story, right, in this space. So they're like, these spaces are important because people see themselves in this space and feel like their voice is valid, and in a different way than it is in the classroom, in a different way than it is in their residence halls. And so I appreciate the institution because we do have these types of spaces, the physical space and the environment that's then created around them that students carry with them once they leave that space, that community. And I just think that they're highly important, and knowing that anyone can come into those spaces. You don't have to identify with whatever the identities are, but you have to be willing to be in a conversation and have to go back to sharing your voice, right? Which is important.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing that, Natalie. And you are a trendsetter, especially being in this position and like ensuring that the space is safe and inclusive of all people of color, of all like sexual identities and orientations. And that's like most amazing to hear that you've been doing that. But you know, I can't help but think about love medicine and what that kind of means. And like, I wanted to really know, like, how do you embody that medicine in your own situation or within situations where like someone may feel unsafe? Like, how do you embody that? And I think I want to start with Sacred. I see you over there. Let's start with you.
Well, it's a dance. I really do feel like it's a dance. I think it's a dance of both how do I embody it and also how do I show up with other people who are on the same journey embodying it too. Like I think that the invitation to be in dialogue with visionary leaders like yourself is an act of love medicine. In regards to the question around how to embody love medicine amidst the national crisis and fostering inclusive spaces in schools, something that worked really beautifully both in New York at Harvey Milk High School and also when I was out in California at 7TPs, and also with looking at some of the university relationships that we've built over the years, is our multiple renditions of what I call radical love or performance training, etc. But specifically at Harvey Milk, that was a series that was based in high school. So that was a specific model. And over an 18-week period, we came together and the young adults, you know, kind of thinking about coming out day, the young adults who were part of the process were amazing rising leaders who had challenging histories. And, you know, I went out and did some auditions and interviews with them. And through the process of the 18-week cycle, they were able to express, you know, what was going on in their minds and their hearts, in their homes. They were able to really explore what kind of leadership skills they wanted to gain. They were able to have really frank conversations about race and racism. I think that's really essential. When you have laws that are passed that say that, you know, you're not going to be counted, for example, in the 2020 census. LGBT people will not be counted in the 2020 census. Or you have a law that says, you know, you are going to be banned for traveling. It's important for you to have space where that is expressed. And so those kinds of issues are able to be explored so that you can figure out what kind of actions. They were able to explore that. And interestingly enough, those are parallel processes that are happening, you know, have happened over the generations. And so by the end, you know, we put together and I helped them compile a book of poetry that was called Radical Love. And it was Radical Love because it was about how do I embody radical love, right? Like, how do I facilitate it? How do I navigate that? How do I hold space? But then also, how do they love themselves when the world says otherwise? And so it was really powerful to witness that process. And so over the years, that's taken different renditions. But I feel like for me, it's both having boundaries in those moments, right? Like I can be able to facilitate those processes because I can say yes and no. And I think that compassion, we forget as givers to say yes and no. Because that way people can feel like, okay, it's safe to explore these issues because I heard yes and no, and it's a dance, and I can learn boundaries myself because I'm, you know, exhibiting them. And then also, to be honest, I feel like what part of that was play, like giving people space to play, to express, like to Natalie's point about that, you know, common ground room, I think you called it. And I think that was the room that we facilitated that retreat. So it's like, I can picture it. gorgeous purple, orange. I mean, the colors are gorgeous. And so being in spaces like that, where you can play, where you can sing, where you can write intentionally, I feel like that's a way to embody love medicine. So, and I think that the gift of being able to ask questions and ask for clarity when things feel uncomfortable or unclear is another way as well. So I would say that those three ways, asking for clarity, being really clear about compassion, justice oriented compassion, saying yes and no, and also inviting in the spirit of play is a way that I embody love medicine and cultivate love medicine.
All right, cool. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sacred. And it's always very warm to like hear you whenever you're talking about love and medicine, how that's incorporated within your communities and in your work. But we have reached our 30-minute mark. So what I am going to ask is for you both to share your final thoughts on the topic, but also share maybe 2 to 3 tangible tools that you want to recommend for other people to incorporate in their communities. I'm definitely going to say like one tool that has proven to work over several times is doing a needs assessment of your community, kind of finding out what are their immediate needs, their short-term needs, their long-term needs, and kind of assessing how capable you are to capacitate or facilitate those kind of needs, and then find out what it is that you need to do to figure out how you're going to fulfill those needs for your community. Because the more that you understand what are the needs of your community, the more that you're able to show up in the most, like when they need you to show up. I think the second recommendation is also looking at your target community and understanding what are their particular age groups, what are their trends, what are their behaviors, and kind of ensuring that the people that you have working within your organization are reflective of those people that you're trying to outreach to or you're trying to take care of, so to speak. Because if they're not reflective of the people that you're trying to outreach to, then what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to like reach them where they are or be able to connect with them on a physical and emotional level. So I think that's very important. And then my third and last thing too is to ensure that your culture is visible. Ensure that your ground rules, safe words within the space, and your work around what you're doing within your space is visible and seen. So that as people come in, they can already feel the impact that you want to create, not only in them, but holistically what you're trying to do as an organization. And I think those are my 3, but I'm pretty excited to hear Natalie's 2 to 3 recommendations and then Sacred's.
All right, thank you. So definitely agreeing with you, Skye, on like assessment and looking at the community and making sure your stuff is visible, like what your statement or your intentions are. So adding to that then 4 and 5, I guess, right? So being very clear about ground rules or community guidelines and utilizing them all the time. Because I find that when you are in those tougher conversations or those more serious conversations that will help you push forward, when you don't have the guidelines there, I feel like it changes the shape of the conversation, and having those guidelines or facilitating to like also lean back on so the conversation does flow and move forward is always important. And then thinking about us within communities that are promoting radical self-love, promoting activism, community understanding, is that to also incorporate moments of self-care, right? And so self-care is, and so I used to not do anything fun with the work that I did. It was all serious and like academic and, buttoned up. And I realized like incorporate, yeah, right? Let it go. Incorporating like music, incorporating readings, incorporating the things that also speak to our soul, right, and to our spirit are so important. And so a lot of our students are very activist focused, and then they get so angry and so tight in the chest because they don't have any way to release that. And like, let's write, let's dance, let's sing, let's eat some good food together. And so it doesn't have to be like, go take a bubble bath and all that kind of stuff. It could just be finding a different way to be in community to kind of release that. So when you talk about whatever that thing is, it can stay in the room and you can do the work afterwards, right? And all those heavy things are left behind. So just remembering to incorporate self-care, whether it's taking 15 minutes to sit out in the sun when we have it, like today, right? Or to creating some radical self-care playlists that people can like jam to when they're like planning. But just remembering to take care of self, because we put so much out and we pour so much out, to remember that we also have to put that love back into ourselves. So that's what I would like to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. And Sacred, I'm excited to hear your recommendations, because I can always depend on you for great recommendations, great suggestions, and even advice. So I'm definitely excited to hear what you say.
That's true. That's true. And you also live and embody self-care on a daily basis, which is also a gift. You know this. But I was actually imagining myself be basking out in the sun, as you were speaking. I mean, that's so essential. And so I want to kind of riff off of that. My one suggestion would definitely be the suggestion around like being intentional about creating affirmations for ourselves. And reading them to ourselves. I have something that I do personally is I have a goddess night that I have every week that I've had for years. And my goddess night is something where whether I'm alone or in relationship with someone, and it's something that I actually have with everyone that I consult with as well, is I encourage them to have a goddess night, whether it's a team or an individual. And they have one night where they take themselves out on a date. They have one night where maybe they pull themselves an affirmation card. So I always close, my meetings with affirmation cards, and I'll take a picture and I'll send it to them. And I'll say, take yourself out on a date and have that affirmation card be something that you read to yourself or write yourself a love letter. And it's partially fluffy woo woo, right? But it's all because that's something that I perfectly think is beautiful and delicious. But actually also, there's research that comes out of Stanford that says that our cells remember things. Our cells remember when things are harmful. And so we have the ability to literally reconfigure our DNA. At this point, it's like proven that our DNA will shift based on our environment. And so us taking ourselves out on that goddess night or that God night or whatever language works for your tradition is literally saying to your cells, like, you're okay. Like, I am safe here. So that when you walk into that boardroom or that classroom, or whether you're the person facilitating inclusive school spaces or whether you're the person in the classroom trying to be in an inclusive school space, that at the core of your being, you're good. And that is so hard in this world and so essential. So one, take yourself on a date weekly. You deserve it. And I deserve it, So that's my one. And then my second one is something that actually came to me this weekend through someone else. It was okay. So I was facilitating this group, right? I was talking about the group of, so I'm focused really on those who are students or those who are adults who are caring professionals. And if you're a caring professional, you give out a lot. And so you're learning how to really replenish yourself. And if you're a student who went into being like a healthcare provider or a nurse or an artist, you're really called to it oftentimes because you went through something that said, oh my gosh, I want to give back. I don't want someone else to go through this, right? And so we were doing this activity where one woman in the group molded her body, because it's drama therapy, and she molded her body into an image that was smaller, and she got smaller to help others feel bigger in the space. And so we began to explore that. And so I want to invite, my second tip would be that you don't have to be small for others to be big. It's a tricky dance, right? And I think that it takes support and guidance and love and that to be a safe space to do so. But I think somewhere along the way, we're taught that inclusion means I need to play small, I need to shrink in order for others to rise. And you're nodding your head, so and we've all been in those spaces where we're like, okay, this person is, saying something that I don't really like, but I'm going to shrink back because I want to make sure to support this person, whatever it looks like. There's so many layers of that, but whatever that meant for her, so many people are in the room were nodding their heads like, yeah, I make myself small to make others feel big. And then there's resentment because that person's not, stepping up and being bigger. It's just, we're still shrinking. And so my invitation is to look at what does it look like for all of us to be in our authentic power without having to shrink or overpower, so that would be my tip. So, working with someone around like creating a way that you don't have to shrink to feel bigger, especially if you're going into the caring profession field.
All right, thank you so much, Sacred, for sharing that. I really appreciate that, and especially like taking yourself out on the date. Like that's the most amazing feeling, because at the end of the day, at least you know that you're getting what you can afford and you're paying for it, and nobody's gonna tell you otherwise when the date's done. So like that's definitely like appreciative to hear that and like remind me that I need to do that. But unfortunately, we kind of come to the ending of our Love Share medicine episode today. However, what I want to share is like, physically, how can people get in contact with you, and remotely, how can people get in contact with you? I know for me, physically, I work full time, 12 to 8 at Fierce, which is in Fordham, Bronx. So you can physically come anytime between 12 to 8, and I'll always be here. And then on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram, it is all S. Adrian Advocate. So it's my first name, it's the first letter of my first name, and the first letter of my last name. That was a tongue twister.
Ooh, say that one more time.
So so it's the first letter of my first name, which is S, and the first letter of my last name, which is A, and then Advocate. So that's S-A Advocate, and you'll definitely find me anywhere on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. My full name is Skye Adrian, and you can also search up and you'll also see me. Like my face is really grown and mature. I look amazing. You're gonna know who I am. And then I'm gonna strongly urge that Natalie and Sacred also share ways that people can remotely contact you or physically get in contact with you, so that we can be able to start this discussion even further with our networks and so on.
Okay, so thank you both. So let's see. Physically, I'm at Sarah Lawrence College, which is in Bronxville, New York. And you can email me if you would like to connect at ngross@sarahlawrence.edu, NGROSS at SARAHLAWRENCE.edu. And I'm the Director of Diversity and Campus Engagement. If you want to follow us on social media, at SLC Diversity is typically where you can find us on like Twitter or Instagram. On Facebook, I think it's like at SLC Diversity /DAPS. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, I really just post pictures of my little boy. But it's at IB Good Peoples. Don't ask. I've had it it was like a Yahoo email name, whatever. But definitely follow us at work with the SLC Diversity. We have a really cool Instagram. It's very busy and very active. But if you're interested, like if you work with young people and want to do a tour of the college, definitely reach out to me. Again, ngross@sarahlawrence.edu. And I can help put you in touch with our admissions office if you're interested in maybe trying to meet with other current students. We can definitely do that as well, which I think is very important to like have that peer-to-peer kind of conversation. So thank you.
Ooh, don't you have something coming up as well, Natalie? No?
The Our Liberation Summit. So we have a summit coming February 3rd. And if you're interested in that, you can email us at ourliberation@gm.slc.edu. We're in our place of call for proposals in this very moment. And we're looking for anyone who can talk about things that are really about our liberation, right? And what will help us all to be free, right? Whether it's around LGBTQI activism, to womanist and feminist movements, to Black Lives Matter, to activism, to self-care. And so you can definitely email us there. We have a graduate assistant who checks that email, but it's February 3rd, 2018. It will be here on Sarah Lawrence College campus. And it's a day-long summit, and we're looking for folks to come, whether you are a community organizer, to student, to anyone in between, right? That wants to either come and participate or come and present, or if you have goods that you want to share. We love a good book, we love a good bag, we love some swag, but anything about our liberation, we definitely would love to have you here, have you be a part of that day with us. I know it's viewing from a sponsor, Air Radio, who's based out of Chicago. All right, thank you.
Sacred. All right. So Sacred, I definitely know that you want to share if you have any last thoughts or any way that we can contact you. I mean, I can contact you right now. You know, you've been
You both have my direct phone number.
right. Like I can get you on speed dial. Like,
Exactly. We have a meeting this week.
Right. But
But I wrote down February 3rd, 2018. I was like, oh, our Liberation Summit. I told right. Okay.
Right, we might be presenting together. I need to
I know everyone who's watching, please join in this one because that's amazing. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So 2 ways to stay in contact. So Kuumba Health is partnering with Mount Sinai. On October 21st, we have a Caring Professionals Mastermind that's coming up, and it's a part of the Caring Professionals Mastermind series that's going to be on October 28th, November 11th, and December the 9th. And so right now we are accepting applications. We released it about a week ago and already half at capacity, so there definitely is a high need. And it's looking at stress mastery. It's looking at the ways for those who are watching who, it's really for all caring professionals, but for those who are watching who specifically are in the field of education, or those who are watching who are in socio-emotional learning, who want to come, exhale, practice mindfulness, practice some stress reduction techniques, and in addition to that, invite and play. So it's going to be around how do you connect with one another, how do you be able to move some of the stress that's in our bodies that sometimes turns into illness, how we triggered a transformation. And so it'll be a really fun, playful experience, and there's some dynamic people are coming. So I feel so fortunate that I'll be able to connect you to one another. And so it's a brief application just to make sure that, we're like-minded and there are visionaries that are intending to come to the space. And then the deposit is due I wouldn't say the deposit is due in 2 weeks, and then you can kind of roll it forward from there. But the intro is complimentary. So you can come, get a taste of it. It's a nice teaser, harmless coconut water in my true Jamaican style. They reached out to us to sponsor, so there will be coconut water available alongside light hors d'oeuvres. But yeah, common experience. It'll be a really good gift. And I've heard a number of people say to me, Sacred, all these changes are happening. When are you going to do something that's focused really on our community? So that's what this is. It's really about taking care of those who care for others and making care come full circle. So come, relax, relate, release. All right? Have a good time. It's going to be real nice. But trust me, I'm already excited. So that's one way. October 21st is the open house. Caring Professionals Mastermind. And then the second way would be for those who are in need of stress management. I'm offering national telehealth. So I have folks that I meet with out of North Carolina, out of California, out of New York. And if you're someone who is looking to meet, I can offer weekly sessions. I'm based in my private practice in New Jersey. So I'm a part of a group private practice that just launched this week. But if you would like to meet and you're not in the New York, New Jersey area, or you don't want to join virtually, so you can join the Caring Professionals Mastermind virtually or in person. But if that's something that timing, for whatever reason, doesn't fit, then let's work on ways that you can really shift some of the environmental stress that's happening, especially if you are struggling with some things going on in your school environment. Let's really help shift that pain to power. So if you want more information about either of those, you can go to Kuumba Health's website, khhp.org, all right, khhp.org, or you can Google Sacred Walker, Sister with Locks. I don't think there are any other Sacred Walkers out there with locks on the East Coast, so I trust that you will find me, and I'm on Instagram at Ask Sacred. And, just let us know how this experience impacted you. So take a picture or something exciting that you did, that you took yourself on a date, a love medicine date, or you came to, Caring Professionals Mastermind or to the Our Liberation Summit. Take a picture of it and just tag us. Let us know what you think. All right. So thank you so much. But those are ways you can stay in touch, and you can always call me at my office, set up an appointment. I'm available.
All right, thank you so much for sharing that with me, Sacred and Natalie. You guys have been amazing, and you continue to do amazing work. And it's like people like yourselves that inspire me to continue doing the work that I'm doing. But until we meet again, this was a great conversation, and I hope to hear from you both. And I hope to be answering any questions that the viewers may have when we go live. All right, so I hope you guys have an extraordinary day. Bye.
All right. Bye, Love Medicine viewers. Join again next week for another Love Medicine broadcast. Thank you so much for joining. Remember to live, love, lead, and learn Love Medicine TV. # Love Medicine TV and follow us here. Thanks so much for joining. Be well.